I'll quit after this hand. I swore. An hour later, I was out $9,500 and my car was repossessed and my name is Marcus. I'm a construction worker and a father. I used to drive my own car to pick up my daughter for weekends. Now I take the bus and make excuses. 2 years ago, I beat this thing. I stayed clean, paid my bills, earned back visits with my little girl. I thought I was safe. It started with a work delay, no paycheck for 2 weeks. Rent was due. My daughter wanted a Halloween costume I couldn't afford. I just needed to win back what I lost, nothing more. The dealer was new, nervous. I won my first 3 hands. The room felt bright again, like it used to, but here's what I didn't tell myself that night. I wasn't going in to win money. I was going in to feel like the man I used to be before I lost everything the first time. The cards turned cold. My daughter's costume money disappeared. Then rent money. Then I signed papers I swore I'd never sign again. When you tell yourself, just this once after 2 years clean, what breaks first? Your promise to quit or your promise to the people who still believe in you? The call came in while I was ordering my usual breakfast sandwich at the 7-Eleven on Maple Street. 2 eggs, cheese, wheat bread. Same thing every morning for 3 months. Routine felt safe. Marcus, it's Dave. My project manager's voice sounded tired even at 7 in the morning. I got bad news about the hospital job. I stepped away from the counter, phone pressed to my ear. The cashier, an older woman named Rosa who always asked about my daughter, waited patiently while I listened to my world shift. The city pulled our permit. Some issue with the electrical sub. We're shut down for 2 weeks minimum. 2 weeks. No work meant no pay. In construction, you don't get vacation days or sick leave. You work or you don't eat. Is it our fault? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Hell no. The electrical guy missed something in his plans. But we're all stuck until they sort it out. I thanked Dave and hung up. Rosa rang up my sandwich and coffee, $4.73. I had $1,200 in my checking account. Rent was due Friday. 5 days. Back in my Honda Civic, I sat in the parking lot doing math. Rent was $1,100. Phone bill, $65. Electric, around $40. Groceries for the week, maybe $50 if I was careful. That left me with negative $55 before I even bought gas. Other construction workers drove past me, heading to jobs I didn't have anymore. Some of them waved. I waved back and tried to look normal, like a guy just finishing his breakfast before heading to a full day of work. The scratch-off lottery tickets caught my eye through the store window. $5 ones, $20 ones. Some promised jackpots of $50,000. I'd walk past those tickets every morning for 3 months without thinking about them. Today, I thought about them. I started the car instead. Drove toward home with my untouched breakfast getting cold in the passenger seat. My phone buzzed against the dashboard, a text message, but I was already thinking about Friday. About rent. About the look on my landlord's face if I came up short again. I'd been late twice in the past year, back when I was still putting my life back together. He'd been understanding then. I didn't think he'd be understanding now. The light turned red at the intersection near my apartment complex. I sat there, engine idling, watching normal people head to normal jobs. A woman in a business suit checked her phone at the crosswalk. A guy in a delivery truck drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Everyone had somewhere to be. I had nowhere to be for 2 weeks. My phone buzzed again. Same text notification sound Emma had helped me pick out 6 months ago. A little bell that always made me smile because she said it sounded happy. Today, it didn't sound happy. It sounded urgent. Sarah's first text was simple. Emma's decided on her Halloween costume. Check this out. The link took me to the Disney Store website. Princess Jasmine costume, complete with jewelry and shoes. $79.99 plus shipping. I stared at the screen, sitting in my car outside my apartment building, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Emma called while I was still looking at the costume. Daddy. Her voice was pure excitement. Did you see it? Did you see my Princess Jasmine dress? I saw it, sweetheart. It's beautiful. Mom says you're going to get it for me because it's your turn to buy my costume. And we can go shopping together. Can we go this weekend? I closed my eyes. Maybe Daddy's got some work stuff to figure out first. But Halloween is soon. Sophie already has her costume. And Marcus from my class, he's going to be a dinosaur, and he says his costume can light up. 8 years old, and already worried about keeping up. Already learning that some kids get light-up dinosaurs, and some kids wait to see if their dads can scrape together 80 bucks. We'll figure it out, I told her. I promise. I hated making promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But what else do you say to your daughter when she's excited about being a princess? After we hung up, I sat in my car for another 10 minutes. Sarah sent 2 more texts. The second one included a link to matching shoes. $24.99. The third text said Emma had been talking about the costume all morning, showing the pictures to her stuffed animals that I opened my banking app. $1,200. Minus $1,100 for rent. That left me $100 for 2 weeks of food, gas, phone bill, and everything else. Including an $80 Princess Jasmine costume that would make my daughter happy. The math didn't work that I thought about calling Sarah, explaining the situation with work. She'd understand. She always understood when it came to money problems because she'd lived through plenty of them with me. But I also knew what that conversation would sound like. The careful tone she'd use. The way she'd pause before saying, "It's okay, Marcus. I can handle the costume this year." I'd heard that tone before. During the worst times, when I was gambling away grocery money and lying about where I'd been. When she was pregnant with Emma and working 2 jobs because I couldn't hold on to money long enough to pay our bills, she'd stopped using that tone 2 years ago when I got clean. When I started showing up on time and paying my share and being the father Emma deserved, that I didn't want to hear it again, that MY neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez was getting her mail when I walked to my apartment. She waved and asked how work was going. I told her great, everything was great. Another lie that came too easily. Inside my studio apartment, I made a peanut butter sandwich for lunch and opened my laptop. Maybe there were some odd jobs on Craigslist. Maybe Dave was wrong about the 2-week delay. Maybe I could find some under-the-table work to bridge the gap. The unemployment office website crashed twice while I tried to apply for benefits. When it finally loaded, the earliest appointment they had was Thursday, tomorrow, and benefits wouldn't kick in for 2 weeks even if I qualified. Emma's costume stared at me from the browser tab I'd left open. $79.99, plus tax, plus shipping if I ordered online, or gas money if I drove to the mall. I closed the laptop and tried to think of other options. But every option led back to the same place. I needed money I didn't have, and I needed it by Friday. My phone rang. Sarah again. "Hey," she said. "Emma won't stop talking about going costume shopping with you. I think she's more excited about the shopping trip than the actual costume." "Yeah," I said. "About that." But I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't disappoint my daughter before I'd even tried to make it work. Couldn't go back to being the dad who made promises he couldn't keep. "Saturday work for you?" Sarah asked. "We could meet at the mall around noon." "Saturday's perfect," I heard myself say. "I'll take care of everything." Thursday morning at the unemployment office felt like a scene from a movie about economic collapse. 30 people in folding chairs, filling out forms, waiting for their numbers to be called. Most of us were construction workers, judging by the work boots and calloused hands. The seasonal layoffs were starting early this year. The guy next to me was named Tony. Electrical work, same as me, but different company. His project got delayed by the same permit issues that shut down mine. "It's all connected," he said, shaking his head. "One inspector gets behind, and boom. Half the jobs in the county are on hold." Tony had been through this before. 3 kids, a mortgage, and a wife who worked part-time at a daycare. He talked about it like you'd talk about the weather. Just something that happened in construction, nothing personal. "You file for benefits yet?" He asked. That I showed him the paperwork I'd printed at home. Same forms he was working on. "Takes forever," he said. "My buddy waited 3 weeks last time." "You got savings to cover you?" I didn't answer that question directly. The caseworker who finally called my number was a tired woman named Jennifer who looked like she'd heard every sob story in the book. She typed my information into her computer with the mechanical efficiency of someone who processed desperate people all day long. "Construction?" she said, not looking up from her screen. "Yeah, we're seeing a lot of you guys this week. Permit problems downtown." She explained the benefits process. Minimum waiting period of 2 weeks. Maximum payout of $460 per week, assuming I qualified. I'd worked steady for 8 months, so I'd probably qualify. Probably. "Any other income?" she asked. "Side jobs, consulting, anything?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Don't take any cash work while you're collecting. They audit these things." I left the office with a case number and instructions to check back in 2 weeks. In the parking lot, Tony was leaning against his truck, talking on his phone. When he hung up, He looked frustrated. Wife's car needs new brakes, he said. $400 we don't have. I sympathized, but 400 seemed manageable compared to my rent situation. Tony must have sensed what I was thinking. You know what the problem is with construction, he said. Too much feast or famine. You're either working 60-hour weeks or sitting on your ass for months. He lit a cigarette and looked across the parking lot toward downtown. My cousin deals cards at that new tribal casino. Says business is good. Lots of guys like us coming in, trying to make ends meet between jobs. I'd heard about the Golden Eagle Casino. Opened 2 years ago, right around the time I got clean from gambling. I'd made a point of avoiding that whole area of town. Your cousin liked the work? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Love it. Good tips, steady schedule. Says some of the players tip better when they're winning than his whole hourly wage. Tony flicked his cigarette into the street. Told me they're hiring dealers if I ever want to learn. We talked for another few minutes about the job market, the permit delays, the weather. Normal conversation between two guys facing the same problems. But part of my brain kept circling back to what he'd said about the casino. About guys like us trying to make ends meet. I got in my Honda and headed home, taking my usual route down Miller Road. But at the intersection near the highway, I made a wrong turn. Just a simple mistake, the kind you make when your mind is somewhere else. The mistake took me past the Golden Eagle Casino. I'd never seen it up close before. It was bigger than I'd expected, with a parking lot that stretched for acres. Even on a Thursday afternoon, the lot was half full. Regular people and regular cars, coming and going like it was a grocery store or a shopping mall. I pulled into the parking lot to turn around. That's all. Just needed to get my bearings and head home. But I sat there for a minute, engine running, looking at the building. It didn't look dangerous. It looked normal, clean, safe, even. Like a place where ordinary people went to relax after work. A guy in a casino uniform was taking a smoke break by the employee entrance. He looked about my age, wearing a white shirt and black vest. Dealer, probably. He saw me looking and nodded in that casual way strangers acknowledge each other. I nodded back. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Not because of anything I'd done, but because of what I was thinking. For the first time in 2 years, I was thinking about gambling not as something dangerous to avoid, but as something that might solve my problems. I put the car in drive and headed home. But I took the long way, avoiding Miller Road and the intersection that had led me past the casino in the first place. At home, I made another peanut butter sandwich and opened my laptop. Emma's Princess Jasmine costume was still bookmarked in my browser. $79.99 plus tax that I had until Saturday to figure it out. 2 days to find $80 without borrowing money I couldn't pay back or breaking promises I'd made to myself 2 years ago. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Probably spam, but I checked it anyway. The message was from the unemployment office, confirming my appointment and reminding me to bring identification. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about Tony's cousin and steady tips and guys like us trying to make ends meet. Then I deleted the text and tried to think about something else. Friday morning, I woke up with rent due and nowhere to be. My landlord would start calling around noon if the money wasn't in his account. I had coffee and tried to think of anyone I could borrow from without explaining why. The list was shorter than I'd hoped. I spent 2 hours filling out job applications online. Most wanted immediate availability, which was good. Most paid $10 to $12 an hour, which wasn't. Even if someone hired me today, it would be weeks before I saw a paycheck. At 10:30. I gave up pretending I had better options. The drive to Golden Eagle took 20 minutes. I told myself I was just killing time. Maybe grab lunch at their buffet, stretch my legs, clear my head. People did that, right? Went to casinos just to eat and walk around. The parking lot was busier than yesterday. Cars with local plates, mostly older models like mine. Working people's cars. A woman about my mom's age was getting out of a Honda Accord, checking her purse twice before locking the door. Inside, the casino was brighter than I remembered from my bad years. Cleaner. The carpet was new, geometric patterns in blue and gold. The slot machines made cheerful electronic sounds, not the harsh clatter I remembered from other places. I walked slowly, hands in my pockets. A cocktail waitress in a blue uniform asked if I wanted something to drink. I ordered a Coke, and she said it was complimentary. Free drinks. I'd forgotten about that. The blackjack section was in the back, past the slots and the bingo room. 6 tables, only 2 busy. The players looked ordinary. A guy in a work shirt like mine. An elderly couple sharing a stack of chips. A woman typing on her phone between hands. I recognized the dealer at the $5 table immediately. Rita Gonzalez. She'd been dealing cards when I lost my house 3 years ago, when Sarah took Emma and moved in with her sister. When I spent 4 days sleeping in my car because I'd gambled away the security deposit for an apartment, Rita saw me but didn't react. Professional. She dealt cards with quick, efficient movements, called out totals in a clear voice, collected losing bets without ceremony. She looked exactly the same. The player closest to me was a young guy, maybe 25. White shirt, black vest. Kevin, according to his name tag. He was nervous, checking his cards twice, looking to Rita for approval after each decision. New dealer. The elderly woman explained to her husband. Still learning. Kevin heard her and blushed. Sorry, folks. Getting the hang of it. You're doing fine, honey, the woman said. She had a grandmother's voice. I watched 3 hands. Kevin dealt himself a 16, drew a 10, busted. The players collected their winnings and stacked their chips with practiced efficiency. Kevin shuffled the cards, his hands slightly shaky. You playing or just watching? Rita asked. She was looking at me now, direct eye contact. Just watching, I said. For now. She nodded once and dealt the next hand. Kevin busted again on the 4th hand. The players were up collectively, chatting about their good luck. One guy tipped Kevin $5, told him he was bringing everyone good fortune. Beginner's luck, Kevin said. But he was smiling now. I finished my Coke and walked to the men's room. Splashed cold water on my face. Looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired but not desperate. Not yet. Just a guy taking a break from job hunting. When I came back, there was an empty seat at Kevin's table. Third base, the spot I used to prefer. The other players were still winning, still friendly. Kevin was shuffling with more confidence. I stood behind the chair for maybe 30 seconds. Long enough to calculate the minimum bet, $5 times 20 hands, $100. Long enough to remember that I'd won my last session at a casino 2 years and 4 months ago. Walked away up $53 and never went back, until now. I sat down and pulled a 20 from my wallet. Kevin looked at me hopefully. Changing 20, I said. He called it out to Rita, who nodded from the next table. Kevin counted out 4 red chips, $5 each. I put 1 chip in the betting circle. Good luck, said the grandmother. Kevin dealt the cards. My first hand was a soft 17, ace and 6. Kevin showed a 5. Basic strategy said hit, but soft 17 against a dealer's 5 was a close call. I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. I'll stay, I said. Kevin flipped his whole card. Jack of hearts. 15 total. He had to hit. Drew a 7. Busted. I won my first hand back in 2 years. Nice play, said the guy in the work shirt. Playing it safe. Kevin pushed a red chip across to me. I had $10 now, double my original bet. The smart thing would be to pocket the winnings and bet 5 again. Stay conservative. I bet 10. Second hand, 20. Kevin had 19. I won again. Third hand, pair of 8s against Kevin's 6 showing. I should split the 8s, play 2 hands at once. Double my exposure. But splitting meant betting another $10, and winning 1 hand felt better than possibly losing 2. I stayed with 16. Kevin flipped a jack for 16, drew a 4 for 20. My 16 lost to his 20. I was back to even money, $20 in chips. Should have split those 8s, the grandmother said gently. Always split 8s. I know, I said. Just being careful. Fourth hand, blackjack. Ace of spades, king of hearts. Kevin paid me $15, 3-2 odds on my $10 bet. I was up $25 now, 45 total. The cocktail waitress came around again. Everyone ordered drinks. Beer for the work shirt guy, coffee for the elderly couple, nothing for me. I was driving. I was being responsible. Fifth hand, 19. Kevin showed a 6, flipped a 10 for 16, drew a king. Busted again. You're on fire, Kevin said to me. 5 hands, for winners. The other players were winning too. Kevin was dealing like someone who'd never seen cards before. His face grew more flushed with each bust. I could see sweat on his forehead despite the air conditioning. I had $55 in chips now. Up 35 from my original 20. Emma's costume cost 80. If I could get to 100 total, I'd have enough for the costume and still walk away ahead. You're bringing us all good luck, the grandmother told me. She tipped Kevin another $5. Don't go anywhere. I'd been playing for 20 minutes. 20 minutes to win back more than I made in a day at my old job at McDonald's. Back when I was 18 and thought 5.50 an hour was good money. Sixth hand, 12 against Kevin's 4. Another close decision. Basic strategy said stay, let the dealer bust. But Kevin had been busting all day. I could afford to be aggressive. I hit. Drew a 9 for 21. Kevin flipped his whole card. Another 4. 8 total. He drew a 5 for 13, then a king. Busted. I was up to $70 in chips. 90 total, counting my original 20. Almost enough for Emma's costume. The elderly couple gathered their chips and left for the buffet, up about $60 between them. The work shirt guy moved to a different table where the betting limits were higher. It was just me and Kevin now, one-on-one. Busy day? I asked. First week dealing, Kevin said. Still getting used to everything. He shuffled the cards with the concentration of someone learning a new skill. His technique was textbook perfect. Casino shuffle, riffle, bridge, cut. But his hands shook slightly, and he kept glancing toward Rita's table like he was worried about being watched. You're doing great, I said. Everyone's been winning. That's not always good for the house, Kevin said quietly. I realized he was worried about his job. New dealer, players winning too much on his shift. Casino management didn't like dealers who couldn't hold on to money. Don't worry about it, I told him. Luck evens out. But even as I said it, I was thinking the opposite. Maybe Kevin's nervousness was my edge. Maybe I'd stumbled onto something special. A new dealer who hadn't learned how to protect the house yet. Maybe this was the break I'd been waiting for. Kevin dealt the next hand. I looked at my cards and felt that old familiar electricity, the certainty that I was exactly where I needed to be. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Text message. I ignored it and focused on my cards. The text was from my landlord. Rent due by 5 p.m. or late fees start tomorrow. Thanks. I checked my phone's clock. 2:30. I had 2.5 hours to get him the money. And I was sitting at a blackjack table with $90, $10 short of what I needed for Emma's costume. $1,110 short of rent. Kevin was waiting for my decision. I had 13 against his 3 showing. Basic strategy was to hit, but 13s were tricky. Hit and risk busting. Stay and hope Kevin busted. I stayed. Kevin flipped a jack for 13, then drew an 8. 21. My 13 lost, down to $80. Tough break, Kevin said. He looked genuinely sorry. A new player sat down at first base. A woman in her 50s with careful makeup and a large purse. She bought in for $100, same as I'd started with. Kevin seemed relieved to have another player. I bet $15 on the next hand, trying to get back to even quickly. Got dealt 20, but Kevin drew to 21 again. Down to 65. That's when the math became crystal clear. I needed $1,100 for rent plus $80 for Emma's costume. $1,180 total. I had $65 in chips plus about $40 in my wallet. Even if I won every hand for the rest of the day, betting $5 at a time, it would take me hours to reach $1,100. But if I bet bigger, I looked around the casino. The other blackjack table had a $25 minimum. Higher stakes, bigger potential wins. I could move there, bet 50 at a time, try to double up quickly. Or I could do what every rational voice in my head was screaming at me to do. Walk away. Go home. Call my landlord and ask for an extension. Call Sarah and explain about the costume. Be honest about my situation and ask for help. 2 years ago, that's exactly what I would have done. 2 years ago, I'd had the strength to walk away from situations like this. But 2 years ago, I wasn't looking at eviction. 2 years ago, Emma hadn't been excited about a specific costume that cost exactly as much as I'd won and lost in the past hour. You okay, buddy? Kevin asked. You look a little pale. I realized I'd been staring at my chips for maybe 2 minutes without speaking. The woman at first base was watching me with concern. Even Rita had glanced over from her table. Just thinking, I said that I thought about Emma showing her costume pictures to her stuffed animals. About Sarah's careful tone when money got tight. About my landlord's orange eviction notices and the shame of having people know you couldn't pay your bills. I thought about the unemployment office and Jennifer's tired voice explaining 2-week waiting periods. About Tony's story of his cousin making good money dealing cards. Then I thought about the last time I'd sat at a blackjack table 2 years and 4 months ago. How I'd forced myself to walk away up $53. How proud Sarah had been when I told her. How Emma had hugged me and said she was glad Daddy wasn't sick anymore. Kevin shuffled the cards and waited for my bet that I put $25 in the betting circle. Half my remaining chips on one hand. Big bet, the woman at first base observed. Big problems require big solutions, I said. Kevin dealt the cards. I got a 6 and a 5. 11 total. He showed a jack. Perfect double-down situation. Put up another 25, get exactly one more card, hope for a 10. If I won, I'd be back to over $100. If I lost, I'd be down to about 15. I looked at Kevin's nervous face, at his shaky hands, at the deck he'd been dealing from for an hour while everyone won except the house. Double down. I said that I pushed my last $25 into the circle. Kevin looked at me like I'd just jumped off a bridge. But he dealt me one card face down and moved on to the other player. The woman at first base played her hand conservatively, staying on 18. Kevin flipped his whole card, a 6 for 16 total. He had to hit, drew a 3. 19. I flipped my double down card. Jack of diamonds. 21. I'd won. Kevin pushed $100 in chips across to me. I was up to 115 total, enough for Emma's costume and a little extra. The rational decision would have been to walk away right then. Take the win, buy the costume, deal with rent some other way. But as I stacked my chips and felt that old familiar rush of winning a hand, I needed to win. Rationality felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. That I needed $1,100 more. And I had until 5 o'clock to get it. Kevin finished shuffling and looked at me expectantly. Rita's break was ending. She was walking back to her table, ready to take over for the next shift. Rita replaced Kevin at exactly 3 o'clock. The shift change was smooth. Kevin gathered his chips and tips. Rita reviewed the table minimum and maximum. The cards got shuffled with machine-like precision. Afternoon. Marcus, she said without looking at me directly. The woman at first base glanced between us. Rita, knowing my name, changed the dynamic at the table. Made me seem like a regular, someone with a history. Afternoon, Rita. She shuffled the 6-deck shoe with movements that looked like muscle memory. Cut the cards, inserted the yellow plastic divider, offered the cut to the woman at first base. Everything textbook perfect. How's Kevin doing? I asked. Learning, Rita said. We all start somewhere. She dealt the first hand. I had 14 against her 6 showing. Basic strategy said stay, let the dealer bust. But Kevin had been busting all afternoon, and I'd gotten used to winning. Rita flipped her whole card. King. 16 total. She drew a 5 for 20-1. My 14 lost. The woman at first base had stayed on 13 and lost 2. Rita collected our bets with economical movements. No wasted motion. She'd probably dealt a million hands in her career. Tough start. The woman said that I was down to $90. Still ahead overall, but moving in the wrong direction. I bet 25 again, trying to get back to where I'd been with Kevin. Second hand. 17 against Rita's 8. I stayed. She flipped a 9 for 17. Push. No 1-1. Third hand. Blackjack. Rita paid me $37.50, 3-2 on my $25 bet. Back up to 120. But I could feel the difference immediately. Rita wasn't Kevin. She didn't bust on stiff cards. She didn't look nervous or apologetic when she took my money. She dealt with the clinical efficiency of someone who understood that the house always wins, given enough time. The woman at first base lost 3 straight hands and left, muttering about cold cards. It was just me and Rita now, the way it had been during my worst nights 3 years ago. She'd dealt me thousands of dollars in losses during those months. Rent money, grocery money, Emma's daycare fees. She'd watched me destroy my life $5 at a time, and she'd never said a word. Busy day? I asked, trying to make conversation. Every day's busy, Rita said. She shuffled the cards without looking at me. Fourth hand, 12 against her 4. I should stay, let her bust. But I was thinking about the clock. 3:20 now. Less than 2 hours to come up with rent money. I hit my 12. Drew a 10 and busted. Basic strategy says stay on 12 against a 4, Rita said quietly. It was the first advice she'd ever given me in all our sessions. I know, I said, just feeling lucky. She dealt the next hand without comment, but I could see disapproval in the set of her shoulders. Rita had opinions about players who ignored basic strategy. Players who bet with their emotions instead of their heads. Players like me. Fifth hand. 13 against her 10. Another close decision. Basic strategy said hit, but I just busted hitting at 12. Maybe I should play more conservatively. I stayed on 13. Rita flipped a 7 for 17. My 13 lost. Down to $70. I checked my phone. 3:35. The casino was getting busier. Afternoon shift change. People getting off work early. Retirees coming in for the dinner specials. But our table stayed empty except for me. Rita shuffled again, her movements automatic. She'd probably shuffled cards in her sleep. "You sure you want to keep playing?" she asked. Not unkindly, but direct. Why wouldn't I? No reason. She offered me the cut card. "Your choice." But the way she said it made me think she remembered our old sessions. The way they'd ended. Police cars in the parking lot. Security guards asking me to leave. Sarah crying in the casino manager's office while they explained that my check had bounced, that I cut the cards, and Rita dealt the next hand, that I had 11 against her 6. Perfect double-down situation again. If I won, I'd be back over 100. If I lost, I'd be down to about $20. My hands were shaking slightly as I pushed another $25 into the betting circle. "Double down," I said. Rita dealt me one card face down and flipped her whole card. Queen for 16. She drew a card. Ace for 17. I flipped my double down card. 9. 20 total. Lost to her 17. I was down to $25. All my winnings from Kevin's shift, gone in 30 minutes with Rita. The rational thing would be to walk away now, while I still had something left. But rational had stopped being an option around the time I'd calculated that I needed $1,100 in 90 minutes. That I pulled out my wallet and counted the cash inside. $43. Enough for one more chance to get back to even. Rita watched me count the money. Her expression never changed, but I could see recognition in her eyes. She'd watched this exact moment play out hundreds of times with hundreds of different players. The moment when walking away stopped being possible. "Changing 40. I said. The ATM was next to the men's restroom, tucked into an alcove where people couldn't watch you make desperate decisions. The screen glowed bright blue against the casino's dim lighting. Cash advance from my credit card. $200 maximum. $5 My hands shook as I entered my PIN. The machine took its time processing, long enough for me to change my mind. Long enough to remember that this was rent money I was about to gamble. Money I couldn't afford to lose, but I didn't change my mind. The machine counted out 10 $20 bills with mechanical precision, plus a receipt showing the $5 cash advance fee that seemed obscene under the circumstances. Walking back to Rita's table with fresh money felt like crossing a line I'd sworn never to cross again. But the alternative, calling my landlord to beg for an extension, calling Sarah to explain why I couldn't buy Emma's costume, felt worse. Rita was dealing to 2 new players, guys about my age in construction clothes. They looked familiar, probably from the unemployment office. One was betting minimum, $5 a hand. The other was more aggressive, 25 per bet. I sat back down at third base. Rita glanced at the fresh bills in my hand, but didn't say anything. "Changing 200, I said. She called it out to the pit boss, who nodded without looking over. $200 wasn't enough to attract attention. Not yet. Rita counted out 40 red chips, $5 denominations. The stack looked substantial, like I had plenty of cushion to weather a losing streak. The math told a different story. I needed to turn 200 into 1,100. A 5-to-1 return in less than an hour. The only way to do that was bet big and win big. I put $50 in the betting circle. Moving up, observed the guy betting 25. First hand back, 19. Rita showed a jack, flipped a 7 for 17. I won. Up to 250. It felt like validation. Proof that borrowing the money had been the right decision. Second hand, 15 against Rita's 10. Basic strategy said hit, but 15s were dangerous. Hit and risk busting on a face card. Stay and lose to any dealer total of 16 or higher. I hit. Drew a 4 for 19. Rita flipped an ace for 21. Everyone at the table lost, down to 200. Exactly where I'd started with the fresh money. The 2 construction guys were grumbling about Rita's luck. One of them mentioned that the new dealer at table 4 had been running cold all day, players winning left and right. "Maybe we should move," his buddy suggested. They gathered their chips and left. Rita and I were alone again, just like old times. 50 again, she asked. I nodded and pushed the chips forward. Third hand, soft 18. Ace and 7. Rita showed a 9. Soft 18 against a 9 was a close call. Some players hit, trying to improve. Others stayed, hoping 18 was good enough. I stayed. Rita flipped a king for 19. My 18 lost, Down to 150. I checked my phone. 4:15. 45 minutes until my landlord started charging late fees. The casino seemed louder now, dinner crowd arriving, slots dinging, people laughing at the craps table. Rita shuffled the cards and waited for my next bet. I could feel her watching my face, reading the desperation that was probably written there in bright neon letters. "You want to take a break?" she asked. "Get some dinner, clear your head." "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was down to 3 chips worth $50 each, chasing $1,100 in rent money with 45 minutes on the clock. Nothing about this was fine. Fourth hand, 12 against her 6. Stay and let her bust, or hit and risk busting myself. Basic strategy said stay, but basic strategy was for people who had time to let the percentages work in their favor. I hit. Drew a 9 and busted. Down to 100. Rita collected my chips without comment, but I caught her glancing toward the pit boss, checking to see if he was watching, wondering if she should say something to someone about the player at her table who was spiraling out of control. That I pulled out my wallet again. I had $8 in cash left, plus my debit card. My checking account had about $50, money I'd been saving for groceries. "Can I get a cash advance on my debit card?" Rita shook her head. "ATM only does credit cards for cash advances. You can use your debit card at the cage, but there's a fee." The cage was across the casino floor, past the slot machines and the sports book. Walking there would mean admitting I was out of money, that I needed to dig deeper into accounts I couldn't afford to touch. But I was already walking, already committed to a path that had only one logical end. The cage teller was a young guy with careful eyes and the patience of someone who'd processed 1,000 desperate transactions. He explained the fee structure: $3 to withdraw from my checking account, plus whatever my bank charged. I withdrew $60. After fees, I had $55 in cash. Walking back to Rita's table, I passed Kevin dealing at table 4. He was still nervous, still busting more than he should. The players at his table were laughing and tipping, riding a wave of beginner's luck that had probably cost the casino hundreds of dollars. I should have moved to Kevin's table. Should have played the math instead of the emotion. But Rita was shuffling cards at my table, waiting for me to come back and lose the rest of my money to her practiced hands. "Last 50, she asked when I sat down. "Last 50. Rita dealt me a pair of 8s. She showed a 6. Pair of 8s against a dealer's 6 was a textbook split situation. Put up another $50. Play 2 hands instead of 1. Hope Rita busted or made a weak hand. Basic strategy said split every time, but splitting meant betting my last $50 and needing to find another 50 I didn't have. It meant being completely broke if both hands lost. Rita waited patiently while I stared at my cards. The casino noise seemed to fade, slot machine bells, conversations, the shuffle of chips at other tables. Everything reduced to 8 of hearts, 8 of spades, and Rita's 6 of clubs. "Splitting?" she asked. I looked at my wallet. $8 in cash. Credit cards maxed out from the earlier cash advance. Checking account empty after the cage transaction. If I split and won both hands, I'd have $200. Still short of rent money, but enough to buy Emma's costume and maybe convince my landlord to accept a partial payment. If I split and lost both hands, I'd be broke. If I didn't split, I'd be playing 16 against a 6. Bad odds either way. Split. I said. I counted out my last $50 in cash and placed it next to my original bet. Rita separated my 8s and dealt 2 more cards. Jack on the first 8 for 18. 5 on the second 8 for 13. I had 18 and 13. Rita still showed a 6. "Hit the 13. Rita asked. Basic strategy said hit 13s against everything except dealers 4, 5, or 6. Against a 6, you stayed and hoped the dealer busted. But I was playing with my last money, and 13 felt like giving up. "Hit it." Rita dealt me a 7. 20. I had 18 and 20 against her 6. 2 decent hands. Rita flipped her whole card, 5 of diamonds for 11 total. She had to hit. Drew a king of hearts. 21. Both my hands lost. I sat there staring at the cards for maybe 15 seconds. Rita collected my chips and my cash with the same mechanical efficiency she'd used all afternoon. $100 gone in 30 seconds. "Tough break," she said quietly. I had $8 in my wallet and nothing in my checking account. My rent was due in 15 minutes, and I was completely broke. The smart thing would be to leave immediately. Go home, call my landlord, explain the situation, Try to work out a payment plan. Call Sarah and tell her about the costume. Be honest about my relapse. Ask for help. But I couldn't make myself stand up. Couldn't face walking through that casino as a loser. Past the slot players and the other blackjack tables. Out into the parking lot where I'd have to sit in my car and call people to tell them I'd failed again. You okay? Rita asked. There was genuine concern in her voice now. I'm fine. I lied that a pit boss appeared at my shoulder. Mr. Chun, according to his name tag. Asian guy, maybe 50, with tired eyes and a suit that looked expensive. Everything all right here, Rita? Player just had some tough luck, Rita said to Amar. Chun looked at me with the practiced assessment of someone who'd seen hundreds of broke gamblers. He could probably read the signs, the empty wallet, the desperate expression, the inability to walk away from a table after losing everything. First time here? He asked me. No, sir. Used to come here a few years back. Well, we appreciate your play. Can I buy you dinner? On the house. It was a kindness, but also business. Keep the loser in the building. Let him recover his composure. Maybe he'd find more money somewhere and come back to the tables. Actually, I said, I was wondering about credit. Markers. Rita's expression didn't change, but I caught her glance at Mr. Chun. They'd had this conversation before, with other players who'd lost everything and wanted to lose more. We can discuss that, Mr. Chun said. Why don't you come to my office? Mr. Chin's office was smaller than I'd expected. A desk, 2 chairs, a computer, and filing cabinets filled with what I assumed were credit applications from other desperate people. The walls were bare except for a casino license and a photo of the Golden Eagle's grand opening. Coffee? Water? Mr. Chin asked. I'm fine. He opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a form. Marker application, it said at the top. Underneath, in smaller print, agreement to pledge collateral for casino credit. How much are you thinking? He asked that I did quick math in my head. Rent was $1,100. Emma's costume was $80. I needed $1,200 minimum, but asking for exactly what I needed would seem desperate. $5,000, I said. Mr. Chin didn't react to the number. He'd probably heard bigger requests and smaller ones. He just started filling out the form. Employment. Construction. Rivera Brothers, General Contracting. I gave him Dave's number as my supervisor. Income. About $40,000 a year. True when I was working steady. Assets. That's where it got tricky. I had my Honda Civic, paid off last year. Blue Book value around $7,000. Other than that, I owned a couch, a bed, a laptop, and some clothes. My car, I said. 2018 Honda Civic. Clean title. Mr. Chun typed the information into his computer. I could see him accessing some kind of database, probably checking the car's value and lien status. Okay, the vehicle shows clear title, estimated value $6,800. We can approve you for $5,000 against that collateral. He explained the terms like he'd done it 1,000 times. The marker was essentially a loan, secured by my car title. If I didn't repay it within 30 days, the casino could take possession of the vehicle. Interest was 12% annually, but if I settled within 7 days, there was no interest charge. Understand? This puts your transportation at risk, he said. If you can't repay, we take the car. No payment plan, no extensions. I nodded like I understood, but I was already thinking past the risk to the possibility. $5,000 in chips. Enough to win back my rent money and Emma's costume and still have a cushion left over. I just needed one good run at the tables. I need you to bring me the title, Mr. Chin said. It's in your car? Glove compartment. I'll walk out with you. The parking lot felt different now. Cooler, quieter. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Normal people were getting off work, going home to families and dinners and Friday night plans that I was about to bet my car on a game of cards. The title was where I'd left it, in a manila envelope with my insurance papers. Mr. Chun examined it carefully, checking the signatures and the lien status. Everything was in order. This'll take about 10 minutes to process, he said. You can wait in my office or at the bar. I waited at the bar, nursing a free Coke and watching the early dinner crowd. Families with kids, couples on dates, groups of friends celebrating the end of the work week. Normal people doing normal things. A cocktail waitress asked if I wanted something stronger than Coke. I almost said yes. Bourbon might calm my nerves, but I needed to think clearly for what came next. Needed every edge I could get. Mr. Chin found me at the bar 15 minutes later. He had a small stack of high-denomination chips in his hand. Purple ones worth 500 each. 10 chips total. 5,000, he said. Good luck. The chips felt different from the red $5 ones I'd been playing with. Heavier, more substantial. Like real money instead of toys. That I signed the final paperwork and shook Mr. Chen's hand. Professional transaction completed. He probably went through this routine 5 times a week with different desperate people betting different possessions. Walking back toward the blackjack tables, I felt that old familiar certainty. The feeling that tonight was different, that this time I had enough money to really make something happen. $5,000 was serious money. Casino money. High roller money. Rita was still dealing at my old table, but now there were 3 other players. The dinner crowd was arriving, and the minimum bet had gone up to $25. That I sat down at third base and stacked my purple chips neatly in front of me. The other players glanced at my stack with interest. Purple chips meant I was playing at a different level now. Rita shuffled the cards and looked at me directly for the first time all day. "Welcome back," she said, with 5,000 in purple chips. I felt like a different person. The other players at Rita's table treated me differently too. Respectful nods. Comments about my serious money. I was betting $100 a hand now. 10 times what I'd started with that afternoon. My first hand back. 19. Rita showed a jack, flipped a 6 for 16, drew a king. Busted. I won. Second hand. Blackjack. Rita paid me $150 at 3-2 odds. I was up to 5,100 already. "Nice start," said the guy to my right, a retiree in a golf shirt who'd been grinding out $5 wins all evening. Third hand. 15 against Rita's 10. I hit and drew a 5 for 20. Rita made 19. Another winner. 5,200. Up 200 from my marker in 15 minutes. The other players started watching my action more closely. Purple chips commanded attention in a way red ones never did. The cocktail waitress asked if I wanted anything special, top-shelf liquor, dinner from the steakhouse upstairs. "Just a Coke," I said. "I'm driving." Fourth hand. Pair of 9s against Rita's 7. I split them, betting 200 total. Drew 10 on both 9s for 19 and 19. Rita made 18. Won both hands. Up to 5,600. "You're on fire tonight," the golf shirt guy said. That I was starting to believe it myself. Maybe this was how it was supposed to work. Maybe the marker had given me enough ammunition to really fight back, to turn a desperate situation into something positive. I called James from my phone, canceling our morning coffee plans. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You sound different." "Just taking care of some business," I said. "Might be out late." "Business on a Friday night?" "Yeah, it's complicated. I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up before he could ask more questions. James was a good friend, but he wouldn't understand what I was doing. Wouldn't understand that sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. Fifth hand. Soft 17, ace 6. Rita showed a 4. Basic strategy on soft 17 was complicated, depended on the specific rules. But I was feeling confident, riding a wave that felt like more than luck. I doubled down, betting another 100. Drew a 3 for 20. Rita flipped a jack for 14. Then drew a 6 for 20. Push, still up 400 for the night. But the push felt like a loss after the run I'd been on. Sixth hand. 12 against Rita's 2. I should hit. Basic strategy was clear. But 12s were dangerous, and I'd been winning by trusting my instincts. I stayed. Rita flipped a king for 12, then drew a 7 for 19. My 12 lost, down to 5,100. Still ahead, but moving in the wrong direction. The golf shirt guy gathered his chips and left for dinner, up about $30 after 2 hours of careful play. Smart money management, I thought. Playing within his means, taking small wins, avoiding big risks. I bet 200 on the next hand. A waitress in a black dress appeared at my elbow with a plate I hadn't ordered. Prime rib, mashed potatoes, vegetables. The smell made me realize I hadn't eaten since breakfast. "Compliments of Mr. Chun," she said. "He wanted to make sure you were comfortable." The other players at the table looked impressed. Free dinner was a sign of status in the casino hierarchy. It meant management considered me worth keeping happy. I ate between hands, cutting pieces of steak while Rita dealt cards. The meat was perfectly cooked, better than anything I could afford at home. It felt like validation, proof that I belonged at this level, that I was being treated like a valued customer. Rita took her dinner break and was replaced by Doug, a younger dealer with an easy smile and casual manner. He chatted with players while he dealt, made jokes, kept the mood light. "How's your night going?" He asked me. Can't complain, I said. I was still up about 300, fluctuating between 5,000 and 5,300. Doug's dealing style was different from Rita's. More relaxed, less mechanical. He took longer between hands, engaged with players, made the experience feel social rather than purely transactional. Under Doug's deal, my luck stabilized. I won some hands, lost some hands, but stayed consistently ahead. Nothing dramatic, just steady grinding. The kind of session that could last all night without major swings. Around 8 o'clock, I hit a small winning streak. 4 hands in a row, all winners. My stack grew to 5,800. You're having a night, Doug said. What's your secret? Just playing the cards, I said. But inside, I was thinking that maybe I'd figured something out. Maybe the key was having enough money to weather the inevitable losing streaks. Maybe my problem in the past had been undercapitalization, not bad luck. I tipped Doug $50 after a blackjack, feeling generous with the house's money. He thanked me enthusiastically, called me a gentleman and a scholar. The other players approved. Tipping dealers well was considered classy. Another player joined the table. A woman in business attire who looked like she'd come straight from an office job. She bought in for 500, betting 25 a hand. Conservative play, basic strategy, the kind of approach gambling books recommended. Good table, she asked. Been treating me well, I said, gesturing to my chip stack. She nodded and settled into play. Having another player at the table changed the dynamic, slowed the pace, gave me time to think between hands instead of just reacting. Ninth hand with Doug, 20 against his 6. He flipped a 10 for 16, drew a 4 for 20. Push. The woman made 17 and won. She looked pleased with her small victory that I realized I'd been playing for over 5 hours. My back was sore from sitting in the same position, and my eyes felt dry from the casino's air conditioning. But I was still ahead, still in control of the situation. 9 o'clock, Doug's break ended and Rita returned for the night shift. How'd we do? She asked Doug. Table's been good to everyone, Doug said. Especially this gentleman. He gestured toward me. Rita looked at my chip stack, still around 5,800, and nodded approvingly. But I caught something in her expression, a wariness that hadn't been there earlier. She shuffled the cards with her usual efficiency and dealt the first hand of her return shift that I lost by 2 a.m. The casino had emptied out except for the serious night players and people with nowhere else to go. The businesswoman had left around 11, up $100 and satisfied with her evening. The retiree never came back from dinner. It was just me and a guy at first base who'd been drinking steadily for 4 hours. Rita dealt with the same mechanical precision she'd shown all day, but I could feel her watching my chip stack. I was down to 4,200 now, having lost 1,600 in the past 3 hours. Still ahead overall, but the trend was clear. Long day, Rita said during a shuffle. Tell me about it. I'd been awake for 19 hours, drinking free Cokes and eating comp food, sitting in the same chair since afternoon. My back ached, my eyes burned, and my decision-making was getting sloppy. The drunk guy at first base was betting erratically, sometimes $5, sometimes $50. He kept talking about his ex-wife, how she'd taken half of everything in the divorce. Rita dealt around his rambling commentary with professional patience. I was betting 200 a hand now, trying to get back to even quickly. Basic strategy said to bet consistently, but basic strategy was written for people who had unlimited time. I needed to catch up before exhaustion made me even stupider. Hand after hand, I watched my stack shrink. Rita wasn't busting like she had earlier. She wasn't making mistakes or showing weakness. She was dealing perfect casino blackjack, and perfect casino blackjack favored the house. 4,200 became 3,800 became 3,400. I increased my bets to 300, then 400, trying to win back what I was losing. Big bets, Rita observed. Big problems require big solutions, I said. It was something I'd heard someone say earlier, maybe the businesswoman or the retiree. It sounded clever when I said it, but felt hollow. My phone had been buzzing periodically throughout the night. Text messages I hadn't read, voicemails I hadn't listened to. Nothing could be more important than what was happening at this table. But during one shuffle, curiosity got the better of me. I checked my phone while Rita prepared the next shoe point. 3 missed calls from James. 2 from Sarah. Several text messages, increasingly concerned in tone. James, you okay, man? You sounded weird earlier. Sarah, Emma keeps asking when you're picking her up tomorrow. Are we still on for costume shopping? James again. Seriously, call me back. Sarah again. Marcus, please respond. Emma's excited about her costume. Tomorrow, Saturday, I was supposed to take Emma costume shopping at noon. The whole reason I'd come to the casino in the first place was to win money for her Princess Jasmine outfit. I checked the time. 2:15 a.m. In 10 hours. I was supposed to meet my daughter at the mall to buy her Halloween costume with money I'd lost hours ago. Rita dealt the next hand. I had 13 against her 10 showing. Basic strategy said hit, but I was too tired to think clearly about percentages and probabilities that I stayed on 13. Rita flipped a 6 for 16, drew a 5 for 21. My 13 lost, down to 2,800 that I realized I was going to lose everything. Not just the marker money, but my car, my transportation, my ability to see Emma on weekends, to be the father she deserved. But I couldn't stop. Couldn't walk away with nearly 3,000 in losses and admit defeat. Had to keep playing, keep trying to get back to even. Rita shuffled the cards and waited for my next bet. The drunk guy at first base had passed out in his chair, down to 1,500 in chips. I stepped away from the table and walked to the men's room. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone I didn't recognize. Pale, hollow-eyed, stubble on my cheeks. I'd been in this casino for over 9 hours that I splashed cold water on my face and tried to think clearly about my situation. I'd lost 3,500 of the marker money. If I walked away now, I'd still owe the casino $5,000, but I'd have 1,500 in chips to show for it. But 1,500 wasn't enough to solve any of my problems. Wasn't enough for rent. Wasn't enough for Emma's costume. Wasn't enough for anything except buying time to lose the rest. My phone rang. James. Marcus, what the hell is going on? I've been calling you all night. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just dealing with some stuff. What kind of stuff? You disappeared after work yesterday, and now you're not answering your phone. Sarah's worried too. Sarah, the costume shopping. Emma waiting for her Princess Jasmine dress. I'm handling it, I said. Handling what? Where are you? I could hear genuine concern in James's voice. He was my best friend, had been for 3 years, had helped me through the divorce, through the worst parts of getting clean, through finding a new apartment and rebuilding my credit. He deserved honesty. But I couldn't give it to him. Just some financial stuff. I'll call you tomorrow. Financial stuff at 3 in the morning? Marcus, you're scaring me. I hung up before he could ask more questions. Stood in the empty men's room, listening to the ventilation system and the distant sound of slot machines. Sarah had left 2 voicemails. I listened to them both. First message. Hi Marcus, just confirming we're still on for costume shopping tomorrow at noon. Emma's been talking about it all week. Call me back. Second message. Hey, it's almost midnight and I haven't heard from you. Emma asked me to call and make sure you didn't forget about her costume. She's really excited. Please call me back, even if it's late. Emma was excited. Had been talking about it all week. Was counting on her dad to show up with money for the costume she'd already picked out, already shown to her stuffed animals. I tried to imagine that phone call. Tried to imagine explaining to Sarah that I'd gambled away not just the costume money, but my car, my rent, everything. Tried to imagine the tone she'd use, that careful, disappointed tone from the worst days of our marriage. Tried to imagine explaining to Emma why Daddy couldn't buy her costume after all that. I walked back to Rita's table. She was dealing to just the drunk guy now, who had woken up and was betting $5 a hand with a stack of red chips. Everything okay? Rita asked when I sat down. Everything's fine. I pushed $300 in chips into the betting circle. Exactly half of what I had left. Rita dealt the cards. I had 11 against her 6 showing. Perfect double-down situation. Put up another 300, get 1 card, hope for a 10. If I won, I'd be back up to 1,200. If I lost, I'd have 600 left. $600 to either get back in the game or walk away from. Rita waited patiently while I stared at my cards. The drunk guy was mumbling something about his ex-wife's lawyer. Double down, I said. Rita dealt me 1 card face down and moved to the drunk guy. He stayed on 14. Rita flipped her whole card, Queen of Hearts for 16. She had to hit, drew a 5 of clubs. 21. I flipped my double down card without much hope. 3 of diamonds. 14 total. Lost to her $21,600 left. Everything I owned in the world reduced to 6 purple chips. Rita collected my losing bet without expression. But I caught her glancing toward the pit boss station. Mr. Chin was there. watching our table with professional interest. You want to take a break? Rita asked quietly. Call it a night. I looked at my 6 remaining chips. $600. Not enough for rent, not enough for the costume, barely enough for groceries for a week, but enough for one more chance to get back in the game. Deal the cards. I said $600. 6 purple chips. Everything I had left in the world sitting in a neat stack in front of me while Rita shuffled cards with mechanical precision. The drunk guy had passed out again, slumped in his chair with his chips scattered in front of him. A security guard appeared and gently woke him up, suggested he call it a night. They helped him gather his chips and cash out. Rita and I were alone at the table now, just like 3 years ago, during my worst nights. She dealt me my last hand then too, the hand that finally broke me and sent me home to find eviction notices and an empty house, and Sarah's note explaining that she couldn't do this anymore. You sure you want to keep playing? Rita asked, not unkindly, but direct, the way you'd ask someone if they really wanted to jump off a bridge. Why wouldn't I? Because you've been here for 10 hours. Because you're betting scared money. Because this isn't going to end well. It was the first time all night she'd said anything that wasn't purely procedural. The first time she'd acknowledged that she knew exactly who I was and what was happening. Maybe it will, I said. Maybe. She finished shuffling and offered me the cut card. Your choice. I cut the deck and she dealt the next hand. King Queen. 20. Rita showed a 10 as she flipped her whole card. Ace of Hearts. 20-1. Why 20 lost to her blackjack. Down to 300. 3 chips. I could feel Rita watching me, waiting to see if I'd push the rest of my chips into the circle or finally find the strength to walk away. Mr. Chun had moved closer, standing about 10 feet behind me, not interfering, but observing $300. Not enough to solve anything, but enough to matter. Enough to buy groceries for 2 weeks, or pay part of my electric bill, or put gas in my car assuming I still had a car tomorrow. I thought about Emma, asleep in her bed, dreaming about Princess Jasmine costumes and Saturday shopping trips with Daddy. Thought about Sarah, probably lying awake wondering why I hadn't called back. Thought about James, worried about his friend who'd disappeared without explanation. Thought about the last time I'd sat at a blackjack table with $300. 3 years ago, and what had happened when I'd bet it all on one hand. Rita dealt the cards and waited for my decision. I had 11 against her 6 showing. Perfect double-down situation, but I didn't have enough money left to double. I could only hit and hope for a 10 or I could bet all 300 on this hand. Win or lose everything on one turn of the cards. All of it, I said, pushing my 3 remaining chips into the betting circle. Rita nodded once and dealt herself another card. 6 of clubs for 12 total. She had to hit, drew a 9 of diamonds. 21. I flipped my cards without looking. Didn't matter what I had. Rita's 21 beat everything except another 21. And I could tell from the way the cards fell that I didn't have it. She collected my last 3 chips with the same efficient motion she'd used all night. No ceremony, no acknowledgement that she'd just taken the last money I had in the world. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds, staring at the empty space where my chips had been. 10 hours of playing, $5,000 in marker money. And I had nothing to show for it, except the certain knowledge that my car would be repossessed within 24 hours. Mr. Chin approached the table with a clipboard and a tired smile. We need to settle up on your marker, he said. Mr. Chen's office felt smaller at 3:30 in the morning. The same desk, same chairs, same filing cabinets full of other people's desperate decisions. But everything looked different under the fluorescent lights, harsher and more final. Standard procedure, Mr. Chin explained, sliding a form across his desk. Sign here to transfer the title, and I'll need your keys. The paperwork took 5 minutes. My Honda Civic, paid off last year after 3 years of careful budgeting, now belonged to the Golden Eagle Casino. Collateral for $5,000 I'd lost in purple chips and bad decisions. I signed the forms with a hand that felt disconnected from my body. Mr. Chin witnessed my signature and filed the paperwork in what I assumed was a folder, full of other repo cases. Keys, he said. I handed them over. House key, car key, the little fob that unlocked the doors remotely. The keyring Emma had made me for Father's Day 2 years ago, a plastic disc with her photo in the center and world's best dad in pink glitter letters. Mr. Chun put the keys in his desk drawer. Without looking at them, "You need a ride home?" he asked. "We have a courtesy shuttle that runs until 4. I'll call someone." "Okay." Again, "I'm sorry it worked out this way. If you can settle the marker within 30 days, we'll return the vehicle. Otherwise, it goes to auction." I knew I'd never see my car again. Knew I didn't have $5,000 and wouldn't have it in 30 days. This was goodbye, not a temporary inconvenience. Outside Mr. Chin's office, the casino was nearly empty. A few diehard slot players, some guys at the craps table, the night cleaning crew mopping floors. The dinner crowd, the casual players, the normal people, they'd all gone home hours ago to their beds and their families and their Saturday morning plans. That I walked through the casino toward the exit, past the blackjack tables where I'd lost everything. Rita was still dealing to one player, an elderly man who looked like he'd been there as long as I had. She glanced up as I passed, but didn't say anything. What was there to say? In the parking lot, I found the space where I'd parked 9 hours earlier. Empty asphalt under a security light, oil stain where my Honda had sat. Other people's cars surrounded the empty space. Normal cars belonging to normal people who'd come here to relax, not to lose their transportation. That I called James from my phone. It rang 4 times before he answered, his voice thick with sleep. "Marcus? Jesus, it's almost 4 in the morning. I need a ride," I said. "I'm sorry. A ride from where? What happened to your car?" I could have lied. Could have said it broke down, or I'd been drinking and didn't want to drive. Could have maintained the fiction for a few more hours, but I was tired of lying. "I lost it," I said. "Lost it how?" "Gambling. I lost it gambling." The silence on the phone stretched for maybe 10 seconds. Long enough for James to process what I'd said, to understand that his friend had relapsed after 2 years clean. "Where are you?" he asked finally. "Golden Eagle Casino." The parking lot was silent except for the highway hum. I sat on a concrete bumper, staring at 17 missed calls, 12 texts, and the wreckage of one night at the blackjack table. James arrived exactly 20 minutes later. He didn't speak at first, just drove past familiar places, the 7-Eleven, the unemployment office, the casino. Yesterday afternoon already felt like another lifetime. Finally, he asked, "When did it start again?" "Yesterday," I admitted. By the time I finished explaining, Emma's costume money, the marker, the car, he just shook his head. "You can stay on my couch. As long as you need." Back at my apartment, the orange eviction notice glowed under the porch light. I packed a bag, left most of my life behind, and followed James home to in the morning. Emma's voicemail waited, her bright, excited voice about costume shopping. It broke me. When Sarah answered, I lied at first, then confessed everything. She was calm, disappointed. "I'll buy the costume." "But Marcus, this can't happen again." After the call, I sat on James's couch with $27 to my name. No job, no car, no home, and the echo of Emma's trust slipping further away. Then my phone buzzed. A casino promotion.